Beautiful morning.
How'd you go with that, honey? Pretty good, eh? Yachty. Oh, look at the ducklings. How good's that? Oh no, we're good, I think. Just let me hop on. I'll get the motor started and then we'll go, eh? Cool. No arguments yet. We're good. Yeah, that was a bit of fun. We got hit by a big southerly change. So, yeah, weren't sure whether it was going to capsize or not. Got it up on its edge. It was pretty friggin' hairy, but fun. And there's only one way to deal with this, and that's to grind it out, get it all back level again, and then I'm going to have to put a patch in there, and then continue to patch it until I get it up to level, and then I'll be laminating over the top. So right, so I've just set up another sort of miniature version of my cutting table, because I've got this larger setup up here, which has got, you know, a number of different substrates on it. Pretty much, you know, down here we've got a 600, we've got 450, 300, 600 rovings, and then I'm right up into the big sort of quadraxials hanging up in the ceiling here. So well worth setting yourself up correctly with a good cutting room table, because if you haven't got that, you're in trouble. So this problem I've got with the modules not fitting is I've now had to go and recut even more substrate to go over the areas where I've removed the foam. It's interesting to note the laminate, and I don't have an engineered drawing of this because this is an after the fact modification, but 30 mil of foam translates to in glass laminates another 300, 1200, 300, 1200, 300, 1200, and a further 300 CSMs on top of that to compensate for one layer of 30 mil of foam. Now, admittedly, luckily I don't have to replace massive sections. We're only talking about 1 meter, but because it's at the forward end of the boat and it is actually slam zone, it needs to be really reinforced. So I've just cut 3 more layers of 1215 quad, which will go in between 300 CSM in between each of those, and essentially that makes up for the 30 mil of foam that I've cut out of the section for the forward starboard head module that didn't fit, you know, wouldn't go low enough, and that's the one I'll show you in a moment as we're laminating it. So I spent all of last week putting 2 layers on this foam down in the starboard hull. We've got this area up here that is where the bathroom or the forward starboard head fits, and as a result I've had to remove some foam. We wanted to re-engineer it, so we went back to Oceanic Yacht Designs, and they've given me the subsequent laminate, of which I've now got to laminate in there, and it's solid glass because I don't have the room short of moving all the modules and changing the shape of the module. That's a bit too hard, but there is a way around it by putting in subsequent layers of glass. Luckily it's only a small area. If it was the whole hull, yeah, I'd be rethinking the whole thing. I'll be looking at different substrates again. This is the area in question. I've removed all of the foam. I've then back down here, you can see here we've actually beveled this edge with an oscillating tool and been able to remove 99% of the foam and gotten back down to just a bit of the sea light resin, which is resin anyway, so it's sanded flat. Just looks a bit like a disruptive clothing or a camouflage or a fatigue type arrangement. But yeah, that's got a layer of 300. I've just sanded it. I'm just about to wipe it with styrene and then put a layer of 1200, another 300, another 1200, another 300, another 1200, another 300, and then 2 more layers of 300, which make up for that 30mm of foam that you see there. So as a result, there's going to be a lot of weight right in this section here, probably about another 3 kilos more than I would have had normally, but that's nothing in grand scheme of the whole boat, really. So I've mentioned exothermic heat in this area here, that I'm going to put like another 6 layers of glass to make up for the foam that can't be there because the module doesn't fit. The problem is I can only put down 1800 grams a square metre of laminate at a time because of the resultant exothermic heat. Now that exothermic heat is a big problem. If I have too much heat going down here at a time, I could damage the substrate below it, or even worse, damage the gel coat right through to the substrate and end up having to redo the whole thing, or a massive fix on the outside once this hull's demoulded. So my solution is that I will be laying one layer of 300, one layer of 12, 115, and then another layer of 300. Keeps me right on the 1800 and should keep the exothermic heat down. Now that heat only really happens for around about an hour or two after the laminating process, and then I can come back and put another one on, therefore getting my chemical bond. So that's what today's all about, is getting this section here all laminated up with about 6 layers of glass. Okay, so it's been 3 days since I've done a layer here. So therefore 72 hours, you're out of time. So you basically got to sand and then, you know, you give it another wipe with the old favourite, old styrene. I mean, I'm going through litres of this stuff, but you know, it just guarantees I'm getting to get that perfect bond, which is what I'm after. Instantly goes tacky, ready to accept the next layer. Now once again, just anything dry that can get the substrate to lay flat, you deal with all your bubbles before you even start. So, you know, you've got, people have told me that this is the hardest stuff to use. It's actually quite easy. You just got to get it down flat and then roll it out with a dry brush, dry roller, anything at hand that gets all the bubbles out before you start, and then you do your wet out. And mate, it's simple. It's actually easier because it's conforming to a shape. I find the double bias a bit harder because it's moving and stretching. This stuff has very little movement in it. So I'm the first to admit it, making mistakes is just part and parcel of this whole friggin' job, and occasionally, you know, yesterday I had up to 30 degrees, so it's pretty challenging laminating, especially down in this engine compartment here, and I've got to put down about 12 layers. It's can't have any foam here, so as a result the the laminates have got to go down pretty fast, and in a hot, furious day, you end up with little voids. So there's only one way to deal with this, and that's to grind it out, get it all back level again, and then I'm going to have to put a patch in there, and then continue to patch it until I get it up to level, and then I'll be laminating over the top, so that slows you up a little bit. Again, got a little bit too fast, too hot, too furious in here, and yeah, that's the consequence. And I see this in a lot of boats, particularly in boats that you know, have infusion problems, or where guys have done repairs and haven't laminated properly, and I'd rather deal with this at the time rather than worry about it later on. Oh, mate, this camera doesn't show it, but probably does show it. It is hot in here, and that 2 hours was epic. Man, sweating like a pig. Don't ever let anyone tell you that this isn't hard yakka. It is hard stinking yakka. Oh my god, I was overheating. It's like 35 degrees. I'm trying to rig it first time. I'm stressing. That's just the way it is. Right, I've cooled off. I'm trying to nick off. Let's go. That one goes down that side. Righto, first time rigging. We've got some air. Not much air. Looking a bit sad. Hey, Bordy. You reckon?
I'm okay at the moment.
Doing alright, eh? We are motoring. Cool. Sailing. It's suddenly coming through now. First time out, not a bad effort. Haven't been smashed yet.
Shush.
Got a bit of a beam reach. We're having a lovely little sail here on the SGB, St George's Basin, waiting for this little southerly to come in. And yeah, nice. Very nice. Should be building a boat. Yeah, we've got about 10 knots at the moment. We're starting to get a little bit of wind chop. So we're sort of heading up to about 12s, some tiny little ones. Our fetch is pretty short here though. Let me just get a little bit of it to this. It's pretty good, eh? It's getting along. Awesome. A bit more wind will be fun.
I'm okay.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to test out the rigging on a calm day like today. You're sailing. We were having such a nice time, and then this monster southerly hit, and all things went pear-shaped. We had to down sails, the jib wouldn't furl in, it was all hell broke loose, and this is what happened at the end once we got anchored up. Going on air, honey. Was that pretty relaxing?
You finished your hair and I started mine.
Why did I scull my beer?
A bit stressed. Look at the seagull over there.
A bit stressed because we got hit by a southerly buster and our jib wouldn't furl, and I know he broke my kneecap on a cleat, but that's sailing, I guess. Yeah.
And I'm hiding.
Janet's hiding from the language that went on.
No, it wasn't.
We're anchored up here. We've got our little bimini up, trying to get a little bit of shelter from the southerly buster that's hit us. And there's no shelter where we're trying to work out how we're going to put it back on the trailer. We've been out for 3 or 4 hours, so we've had a bit of fun, haven't we? It's the problem, the jib just sort of got caught up, and I was up on my knees on the front, and then the motor was, the prop was lifted out of the water because of my weight on the bow, and yeah, it wasn't a good scene. Bit of language, and we're having a beer to get over it before we try to put it on a trailer. We've got to demast it, put it back on the trailer, but yeah, all good fun. That was fun, Dave. So that's it, fellas. I'm back after a few months of working on our kayaking business and building a number of boats and getting out and doing a few kayaking trips and a couple of expeditions. I'm back full time here, working away at getting this job done. Now, if you like this video, please click a like. If you want to subscribe, you need to subscribe. You know, my readership is waning somewhat because of my lack of effort on the video side, and certainly make a comment. You know, that way I get to know what everyone's thinking out there in the real world, because this certainly is the real world. And I'll see you next time on Life on the Mould. Thanks for joining me. Catch you later.